Hi, my name is Jeff Henderson. I work for the Base Mountain Fire Department. Today we're going to be going over the truck check for tender 143. This is also the same tender that you will have at Station 145 and Station 146 frontline trucks. To start the truck check, we're going to check the engine compartment first. So if you follow me, I'll show you how to pop the hood on these tenders. So on each side, you have these big latches. Just pop that, walk to the other side. Same thing right here. Pop that latch. Then you come to the front. There's a grab handle right here on top of the hood. You gotta pull it really hard. Nice and easy. So once you get the hood popped, you're going to be starting off with the fluids. So on this side of this tender, you can see that we have your engine oil. This will be the fill. Here's your dipstick. Here's the transmission dipstick. Here's your power steering fluid, and then washer fluid if you had to fill for some reason. So that's where you would pop that, fill that. So talking about the fluids, we'll go ahead and check the engine oil now. So you have your dipstick here, just a little twist, and pull this out. Always make sure you have a rag or a paper towel with you so that you can wipe this off. So give it a good wipe. Put it back in. Make sure you go all the way down. Pull it back out. Now this will give you an accurate reading of your oil levels. So as you can see, it's reading full, so that's good. You give it a little wipe before you put it back in. Make sure you twist it to lock it, and then same thing with your transmission fluid. So this one, again, you want to give it a little wipe first before you put it back in to check the levels. Pull that out. As you can see, there's markings for cold and hot. As long as you're within those markings, the minimum being the last line on the cold start, you know your levels are good. So when you're checking the engine oil and the transmission fluid, you want to make sure that you check the engine oil before you turn the truck on so that you get an accurate reading with the truck cold. With the transmission fluid, it's best to turn the truck on, leave it running for 10 to 15 minutes before you check it, and that will give you a more accurate reading on your transmission fluid levels. Also on this side, you have your power steering fluid. So this one, you can visualize the reservoir. It's like the transmission fluid. This is max hot and minimum cold. And then as you can see, minimum hot, max cold. As long as you're within that range, you know you have enough fluid. This also has a dipstick up top, just as a twist, and pull that out. It's the same thing. It shows you max hot, max cold, and then the minimum. So while you're checking the fluids on this side, you're also going to want to visualize all your wire harnessing, making sure that the connections are good, following them to where all the connections are made. Make sure that the protection here is good, not cracking, that the wires aren't fraying, or there's no holes in any of the insulation over the wires. Checking the tubes as well, that there's no major leaks that you can visualize. There's no holes or any frays in the tubes. And if you just visualize down deeper in the engine compartment as well, that all the wires are in place, no fraying or anything that's out of place. So on this side, as you can see, you have your coolant. So you're going to want to check this. On the left-hand side of the reservoir is where your cold minimum and cold max are. As you can see, we're right in the middle, so you know that we have enough coolant fluid. Also, just like on the other side, you're going to want to check all your tubing, any of your wire harnessing, make sure that it's secured where it's supposed to be so it doesn't rub and get frayed or damaged. Check down here. Again, you're just visualizing things that you can touch and feel. It's good too to make sure that everything is nice and secure, that there's no damage to any components in the engine compartment. So next we're going to be looking at the framing and suspension on the vehicle. So if you You start here, you get down, you're just looking under the truck, visualizing the frame and suspension as you move up and down the truck. What you're looking for is any obvious signs of wear and tear. So that could look like shiny metal, parts that might rub together, any rust, any cracking in the framing and suspension. If you move towards the front of the truck, you have a good open space here at the wheel well where you can visualize all the way to the front of the frame. Check the suspension. You're gonna wanna make sure nothing is rattling super loose on here. Check the leaf springs and make sure there's no cracking. Another obvious sign that something might be wrong with the suspension on the vehicle is if it's leaning to one side or the other too much. And so you just wanna pick a spot, look under the truck, come to the wheel wells, check, and that way you know that the framing suspension is good to go. Now we're going to be moving on to checking off the exterior of the vehicle. That's going to be doing a 360, making sure that you don't see any obvious fluid leaks out of the truck, and doing a 360 of the lights, making sure that everything's in working order. So to do that, you're going to have to turn the truck on. So on these tenders, your master power switch is right here underneath the driver's seat. You want to make sure you put that to the on position. So once you're in the cab and you have your master power on, your ignition switch is right here. So go ahead and do it's like a 3/4 turn. Make sure you wait for it to run through the check. You'll hear everything kind of go, a bunch of clicking and noises, and then you know that you're ready to turn it on once all the lights go off. So turn the truck on. And then this right here is your master control panel. So to turn your lights on, you're going to go ahead and hit the master emergency light button, and that'll turn all your emergency lights on the truck. You also have your auxiliary buttons, where your scene lights are. So you want to go ahead and turn all your exterior lights on, so that when you're doing your 360, you can make sure and visualize that all the lights are in proper working order. Now that the vehicle's on, we're going to make our way to the front of the vehicle to start our 360 check. Once you get to the front of the vehicle, visualize that all your emergency lights are on and in working order, that no bulbs are out. As you can see, they're all flashing. You have 4 down low, and your main light bar up top. Then you can make your way to the passenger side, visualizing all the flashes there. And just making sure that as you're walking down, you're also visualizing on the ground that you don't see any fluid leaks. And as you make your way around the vehicle, we have our scene lights up top and our water level indicating light. Make sure that that's full every time you check the truck off, and that the lights are all in working order. As you make your way down, you have more emergency lights right here. Make sure that those are working. You have more scene lights and emergency lights up top. And then as you make your way to the back of the vehicle, you can see that you have 4 flashers for your emergency lights and your back scene lights. Come to the driver's side, again, visualizing no fluid leaks as you make your way around. Scene lights are working and all your emergency flashers are working. So with these tenders, the batteries aren't located in the engine compartment. If you look on the side, the driver's side of the truck, you have this big compartment here. You want to pop that, and then this pulls off. Be careful on the edges because it is kind of sharp. And then as you can see, this is where your 3 batteries are. So again, just like in the engine compartment, you're gonna wanna make sure that the wires themselves have no fraying, nothing out of place, that everything's nice and tight and held down. Visualize the connections to the batteries, make sure there's no buildup, and that nothing looks out of place when you just check and make sure that it's secured down as well on the terminals of the batteries. As you're doing your exterior check, make sure you check the tires as well. So we're going to come up, visualize the tires, checking the exterior wall, making sure there's no gashes, no cracks, no bulging in the tire wall. Also check the tread, make sure you have adequate depth. A quick little guide is like sticking your pinky in there, making sure that it's not too bald anywhere. Uneven wearing, make sure that there's no big chunks. You know, we're in a lot of rural areas out here, and these tires sometimes can be chunked. So you want to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be reported. You're also going to check the wheels, making sure that everything is nice and tight. Checking your lug nuts. It's always good to look, touch, feel, listen, if there's any rattling or anything that's loose. Next, you're going to check the tire pressure. So these tires, the front max is 130 psi, and the rear dualies is 120. So just check it like you're checking your tire at home. This one is reading about 125, so you know that we have good tire pressure in this. And that's checking your tires. Once you're done with your exterior check, you're going to move to the interior of the cab and start checking your seat belts. So just making sure that they're operating properly as they click in, it's tight. Inspect that there's no fraying or cuts or tears in the seat belt system. Once that's good to go, we're going to go ahead and check our gauges. So it's just visualizing again that your voltometer is working properly. You have your air brake gauges right here. Making sure that you have good air in your brake system. You have your fuel gauge, making sure that you're above that 3/4 line at a minimum. You have your speedometer, your RPMs, and then you have your depth gauge all the way here on the left-hand side, making sure that that's always full, or again, at least 3/4 minimum. Your oil pressure gauge, and then your transmission fluid temperature gauge. From there, you're going to check your windshield wipers, making sure that they're operational. So you have your toggle on the left-hand side of the steering wheel here. So just making sure that they work. It's just a twist and turn mechanism. And I always like to make sure that the windshield wiper fluids portion works so that you can clean your windshield if it's too dirty. It's always vital to make sure that you have good visibility out of your windshield. Another portion of the interior check that's really important is checking off your mirrors at the start of the day. You want to make sure that you have your mirrors adjusted to the right viewing angles for your size, your height. Everyone's going to be a little different, so getting in, making sure that you can see well, checking out of your rear view mirrors. The toggle switch for these mirrors are on the driver door here, so you just have a switch to change it to which side, and then you can adjust the top mirror. And your blind side mirror is a manual, so you just kind of have to push it till it is where you want it to be. From there, you're going to visualize your glass, making sure that all the windows are nice and clean. There's no obvious cracks or chips in them. Nothing that needs to be noted in the truck check. This is all just making sure that everything's in working order in the cab. So next, what you're going to want to check off is that your horn and siren is in proper working order. So if you look down here on the center console, you have your toggle switches to operate the horn and siren. Always make sure that the power switch is on, because if it's not, you won't be able to turn it on. So just make sure that it should be on. But from there, you have the toggle switch here, so you can either rotate through the different sirens like this, or you have the manual button if you leave it in the hands-free position, and that'll toggle through it. But then you have to flip it to turn it off. You have your horn button here. You also have an air horn button on the steering wheel of these tenders to turn the air horn on. So lastly, with the interior, is just making sure that the cab is nice and clean, that there's no tears or anything in any of the liner, nothing that's going to get in the way, and that everything's in working order. You have all the equipment that you need. Next, we're going to move on to checking the air brake system of the truck. So before you get out, making sure that your air brake is applied. It's right here. Make sure it's popped out. And then always set your wheel chocks before starting this test, so we'll demonstrate that. So once you've exited the vehicle, as you can see, the wheel chocks are down here underneath the little engineer compartment. So you now want to make sure that you pull these out. That's locked and engaged. You want to make sure that you set the wheel chocks so that when you're testing the brakes, if there is a failure, you don't move forward, there's less risk of injury. So once you have your wheel chock set, you're going to get back in the cab of the vehicle. To start the test, you're going to be turning the truck off. And make sure that you push the service brake in to start the test. For this, now have it to where the gauge is engaged, so you want the engine off, but the mechanisms to still work on the gauge cluster. And so for this, you're just going to start by pumping the brakes. As you can see, as I'm pumping it, the air gauge is going down. So this is checking that the fail-safe mechanisms are in place. So it starts beeping around 70 psi. You're going to keep pumping. goal is once you hit about 30 PSI, you should hear the service brake engage itself as a fail-safe mechanism. So if you heard that click and you see this is pulled out now, so from there, you know that you can turn the vehicle back on. So once you have the vehicle back on, the air should start engaging with, again, filling the tanks up. And to make this go quicker, on the instrument panel here, you can hit the high idle button. And that should engage the engine into high idle to make the compressor fill the air tanks quicker. What you're doing here is making sure that as the air tanks fill, it's kind of the reverse. So once you hit about 70 PSI, that alarm should go off. Once both tanks are at that level, and then you're going to continue to fill it until about 110, 120 PSI, and you want to hear the air compressor switch off. And it might be hard to hear in the video, but when you're doing the test, you can hear it outside. It'll be like a loud kind of swish of air. That's how you know that the air compressor is turned off and that your tanks are filled. So the last step of the air brake test is checking that your brake systems are holding, your service brake as well as your normal brake on the pedal. So what I like to do is, since my service brake is already pulled and engaged, I'll go into drive from here. So you have your shifter here. So you'll just hit drive, it's just a button, and then you hear the engine shift into gear. Always hover your pedal brake while you're doing this, just in case there is a fail and you need to press the brake. But what you're gonna do is rev up just a little bit and make sure that the truck isn't moving and you know that that brake is holding. And then from there, I'm gonna depress my normal brake, turn off my service brake by pushing in. And then same thing, hit the pedal to engage the truck and make sure that the truck's not moving and you know that your brakes are holding. And go back into neutral and pop your service brake. That way you know the truck is steady and your air brake test is done. So next we're going to be doing the pump check off. So once you're inside the cab and the truck is turned on, we'll come down here to your main instrument panel here. You have your pump PTO engage, so you'll hit this button. You'll hear the pump turn on and engage. On these tenders, you also have pump and roll capabilities. So if I were to hit pump and roll menu, I can engage pump and roll. And that just allows me to be able to move the truck to the pump on, because this truck has front sprays, side sprays, and rear sprayers. So that if you needed to use this on the side of the road or any reason to spray water while you're in the cab, this truck has that capability.
After you've turned on that PTO switch, make sure that your tank to pump switch is on the outside of the truck. Now on to the actual pump panel. The first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and select the mode setting to change it to PSI mode. After you've selected the mode, then you can go ahead and select the preset setting, which will set the PSI or pump discharge to approximately 90 to 100. You're wanting to check that the pump is working optimally and that there's no pause in pressure or change in RPMs as well. After we've selected that preset, we're going to go ahead and pull out our tank fill to make sure that the pressure stays the same even when it is pulled to the full outward position. When you pull back the handle, you might see a slight drop in pressure. That's okay. We just want to see that it gets back to its original pressure, which is about 90 to 100 PSI or about 1,000 RPMs. After you've tested the tank fill, you're going to want to put it to its original position, which is about 1 finger length, just slightly open to be able to have a little bit of circulation of that water. Tender has 2 discharges on the driver's side and 2 intakes, the 2.5, which is smaller on that side, and then the 4-inch, which is actually hooked to our keystone. This vehicle also has 2 speed lays attached to it as well. You can see up above that there is hose that you can pull out and be able to use if you needed to, as well as the discharge handles below, color coordinated to the hose. Be on the lookout that during the summer months that brush line can definitely be in one of those speed lays to be able to help with brush deployment. There's a 3.5 discharge on the passenger side that is electronically open. So what you need to do is you actually have to press this green button and hold it to be able to open it to the full percentage. It's important that you make sure it's open to 100% because this can gate your flow and or damage the valve. Next up, we'll check our primer, which is located down here in the center of the panel. When you push it in, you should hear some air leaving the line and water dropping below the truck. If you look to the left of this video, you'll be able to see that there is water discharging. This completes the pump panel section of the truck check.
Here's that larger discharge. Just so you know, if you did open it on the other side to get this cap off, you'll have to open the drain before the pressure is relieved so you can get this cap off. Always make sure you close the drain. That the cap is back on and tight. You never want to move these vehicles without having these caps on.
So that completes the check for the pump panel. It's really important that if anything is not working properly or out of place, that you notate it in that section of the truck check. Also notify your crew, your senior firefighter, engineer, captain, so that it could get fixed immediately, because in the majority of our area that we service, these are our water sources. So if this truck isn't working properly, that can really affect a fire scene. So it's important that everything is in working order. And again, if it's not, make sure you note it in your truck check, notify someone on your crew so that it can get taken care of as soon as possible. So now we're gonna go over checking off the equipment that is on these trucks. So I'll start here first with the fire shelter. So these are usually on these tenders gonna be inside the cab on the passenger side. Always make sure these are present, because if we get a brush fire, these are vital to have in that situation. And then coming down the truck, I just go to each compartment. So in this compartment here, this is kind of like the little engineer's compartment. You have a fill hose here. You have your different adapters to make connections to the panel and different hoses. You have an extra hydrant wrench in here, as well as spanner wrenches. Making our way down the truck. You have your hard suction up top here. So this is if you're having to draft out of a static water source. So you have your two hard suction hoses here. And then in this compartment, you have the filter for that hard suction that goes on the bottom of that static water source. You also have a set of irons in this truck. So you have your Halligan and your sledgehammer there, the hose clamp, and then just extra fill hoses, as well as your emergency traffic cones. Making our way to the back of the truck, you have your hydrant wrench and spanner wrenches here, just that extra set that I was talking about. On the back here, you have the water chute. So this is if you're dumping your tank water into the portable tank, which we'll get to here in a second. But this expands out and it just telescopes back in. But always make sure you lock it, because if you're driving down the road and this isn't locked, it can rattle open. And then to change the direction of the chute, there's a little switch here. And as you see, it locks in place. And with that, move it back. There's different positions as you go. I always, while I'm back here, like to just check. Be careful doing this. You'll hear it engaging with this toggle switch. I just go until I can hear water starting to come out. And as you can see, a little bit of water comes out. And close it. Moving to the passenger side, you have a direct tank fill here, so that if for some reason you can't use the other intakes, you can fill directly into the tank here. If your tank is full of water and you open this, it'll pour out of here, so be careful using that. You have your porta tank here on these tenders, with a nice little system where you just hold this toggle switch down, and as you can see it lowering behind me, you go all the way down if you're going to deploy the porta tank. And you have your porta tank here. Always make sure that this is here. I just visualize it, making sure that I don't see any obvious tears or anything in it while it's sitting in its compartment. And then same thing, just toggle switch up, and it'll load itself back up. Once that's back and secure, in the back passenger compartment, you have your tarp here. Sometimes if you're deploying the portable tank, you're gonna have to lay this down because if it's on rocks or any gravel or anything, you risk tearing the porta tank. And then you also have your ice chest here. Moving forward to the next compartment on the passenger side. In here, you're just gonna have some extra hose links, as well as on tender 143, we have a ventilation fan. Making sure that's there. This one's battery, so check that the batteries are charged and ready to go. Last part of our equipment check is checking the equipment inside the cab. So what that's going to be is your radio. So you have your portable radio here, making sure that it's there. I always like to make sure that it's turning on. So you just turn the volume toggle that engages the radio. Make sure that it's on, turn that off. Always visualize that the lights are turning on the charger, as you can see there. You have your mobile radio here inside the cab. This is your radio as you're in the cab. You also have your PA system here, so you can just do a little check on that. You can't hear it in the video, but you'll be able to hear the system engage. And then lastly, you have your mic for your mobile radio here. And then making sure that you have your vehicle registration, insurance, as well as your fuel card. So you have our registration here, proof of insurance, and our fuel card here. Make sure no matter what truck you're checking off that these are always in there because these are vital to be on the road. That concludes the checkoff for tender 143. Remember, you can always refer back to this video if you can't remember you need further guidance. But if there's anything else that you don't know or you don't feel confident in, always make sure to bring it to your crew and they will be able to help you guide you in the right direction for any further help you might need.